Hello and welcome to another episode of Fire 5 at Phoenix. Now, normally it's one topic, one guest, but today we've kind of squeezed in two topics of rest and sleep. And we've also squeezed in two guests. So still have 5 unseen questions. And today I'm joined by Zoyah and Lailah. Hello, ladies. Thank you for joining me today. So I'm going to do the introduction just to keep things nice and easy. So Zoyah and Lailah, I met last year through Bristol Young Heroes. So both incredible young women. And they have both been quite adamant that they didn't want to talk about themselves today. So I'm going to do the intro, but they both were nominated as Bristol Young Heroes by Community of Purpose, which is an organisation based in Bristol who look at the young people in Bristol who've done incredible work within their communities. And I got involved a couple of years ago with their Positive Pathways programme, which comes after the amazing awards evening, a very emotional evening. Well, I get emotional anyway, I'm not sure about everybody else, but it's certainly a very emotional and inspiring evening. And then I get involved in Positive Pathways afterwards, which is a 6 to 8 week programme where we work with young people and help them with life skills and tools to help them. So it's a bit of a give back, and also set them up with mentors to give them some support over the next 12 months. Now, I've always wanted to get some younger people on these podcasts because I think young people have amazing things to contribute. And also it's good to see things and talk about things from different perspectives. So I'm really excited to get my first young people the podcast. So thank you very much for joining me. That is probably enough of me talking and enough of an intro. So you've got 5 questions.
Yeah.
And they're all on the topic of rest and sleep.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into it. What's your first question?
So how big of a link is there to the amount of sleep you have and your daily behavior? How does it contradict? What do you think?
I think it has a huge impact. So certainly from a rest and sleep point of view, and you might remember when we did the mindset workshop in the Positive Pathways, and we talked about the mindset, and we talked about how when we're tired and emotional and hormonal and hungry, that actually it's much harder for us to control our behavior. And so our focus, our attention, and how we respond to things, our emotional responses are definitely impacted by sleep. Is that what you meant by your question?
Yeah.
Do you notice it with yours?
Yeah, to be honest, obviously when I work, I get up quite early and I have long shifts and stuff, and days where I just don't get enough time to do what I need to. I mean, I do have the weekends off, but still I kind of want to rest on the weekend. So after work is my only time if I need to socialise, I might go ahead and socialise. And when I do go to sleep late, which I normally do not do, but when I do go to sleep late and the next day at work, I can just tell my behaviour is just different. I'm just a totally different person if I don't get my sleep. And if I don't rest.
Yes, I'm exactly the same. I get quite grumpy quite quickly. I find my tolerance levels are a lot lower when I've not had enough sleep. And there is probably research out there, but certainly from when we look at the brain and how the brain works, that part of our brain that helps with the rational thinking, looking at the bigger picture, looking at different perspectives, it's not as active when we've not had enough sleep, and it needs that energy to be able to do that. So yeah, it does definitely makes a big impact. What about you, Lailah? You need to sleep.
I think weirdly enough, from a young age, I struggled with sleeping. And so I got very used to having 6 hours or less every night, which I know is not the best thing growing up. But then I always kind of, even if I felt tired, I'd still act very bubbly and energetic. And then I think I got used to that and it became easier. So naturally, even without much sleep, I'd get quite a bit done. And then it was weird because I felt that then when I got more sleep, so when I got 6 to 8 hours, then I felt even more tired throughout the day, which was a weird thing.
Yeah, there's definitely a line, isn't there? I think I hear that from quite a lot of people. There's that when you've had too much sleep, sometimes you get the headaches, and that could be dehydration, but also people feel quite lethargic when they've had too much sleep. So we all have a different circadian rhythm, which is around 24 hours, but different cycles work differently for different people. We need more sleep when we're younger, it gets less as we get older, but certainly the things that the body needs to do while we're asleep, we need to give it enough time to be able to do that, or that almost like runs out of time in trying to get everything done. So, but you know, if 6-7 hours feels kind of good for you, then yeah, your body will tell you otherwise, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Good first question. Okay, who's got the second question?
So the second question is actually, what advice would you give to someone who struggles with sleep and like rest and sort of taking a break from everything, I guess?
And they are connected, aren't they? I think the rest is really important. And I think that we don't prioritize rest enough. There's lots of pressure, isn't there, that we need to be busy, that we need to be productive, that we need to make best use of our time. You know, that whole thing of we've all got 24 hours in a day and we need to make best use of our time. There's a lot of pressure to be active and be productive, but there isn't a lot of talk about the importance of slowing down and rest. And I think we're talking about it a little bit more, but we're not talking about it enough. And that is a big part of getting a good night's sleep, is slowing down. So I will quite often ask people the question of, when you get into bed, have you already been slowing down like an hour before, kind of that sleep hygiene routine that you're slowing down before you get into bed, or are you hitting the pillow like it's an emergency stop and just expecting everything to shut down and be able to go off to sleep really quickly? Because that's not how it works. So that rest and that wind down before you get into bed is really important. And sometimes that's all it needs for people to improve their sleep. There's a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, which is probably one of the most popular books out there around sleep. There's lots of different research out there looking at sleep and how it can help and what the lack of sleep can impact. There's lots of advice about what to do there. But one of the things he talks about is how you should associate your bedroom with sleeping. So things like TV's in the room, he doesn't recommend. Screen time in the room, he doesn't recommend. So having that real switch off before you kind of go off to sleep. So, and what he also talks about is, if you do struggle with waking up in the night, to actually leave the room and go and sit in a different room, do an activity that helps you to feel sleepy, and then go and get back into bed. Things like a shower or a bath, so that warm temperature and then a cooler temperature bedroom, that can help you go off to sleep. But I think one of the key things is that rest, is that slowing down in that hour, 2 hours before you go to bed. So I've done it in the past. I set an alarm. Like if I'm really struggling to get a good night's sleep, I'll set an alarm for like 9 o'clock to tell me I've got an hour left to start to slow things down. And then at 10 o'clock, I've got a do not disturb, everything shuts down on my phone, so I haven't got those distractions coming in. And then when I get into bed, I like to read before I go off to sleep. That is just kind of slowing things down, so that when the light goes out, I'm gone. I am out for the count. So I think different things work for different people, but there's if you Google tips to help me sleep, there's probably 10 that are kind of the most common ones, but it is very individual, and some things don't impact people. So there's some people that say, you know, they can drink coffee an hour before bed, it makes no difference at all. I know I can work out an hour before bed, doesn't make any difference to me, but it does to some people. So I think it's just playing about with what works for you. I mean, you both have really busy schedules, so how do you find winding down?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like I don't slow down, but then I kind of do, because like when I come back from work, I like have something to eat, might get some work, like coursework done, and then I just slow down, might watch an episode of a show I watch or anything, and then that's my slowing down. Not really like I need to go to bed. I don't use my phone before I go to bed at all for like an hour. and then I just like, that's my hygiene routine, like have a shower, do my hair, clean my room, brush my teeth and stuff, and then go to bed.
That's a good wind down routine. That is good. What about you, Lailah?
I do go on my phone before I sleep. I don't know, for me, I find that my brain just works best at night. I think I'm just quite a nocturnal person. And so for me, doing homework at like 4 p.m, 5 p.m, like that just doesn't work for me. That's like when I get tired, and then when it gets to like 9 or 10 p.m, I'm like, right, let's do some homework, let's get some revision done. So it is a bit weird. I think that's probably why I don't get as much sleep, because I work a bit better later on at night, but I still have to get up. I think it would be different if I didn't have to get up early, because then I could sleep until like 9 or 10 a.m.
So you're more of a night owl than an early bird.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's the weird thing, isn't it? Is that if we didn't have a society that works around an 8 till 4, 9 till 5, actually, yeah, years ago, we would have worked to the people who are early birds would get up, do all of the things that need to be done early on in the day, and then wind down and go to bed early. And the people who are night owls would sleep in a lot later and cover into the night. So you've got the 24-hour period covered. But it's not how society works. Although I think, interestingly, with flexible remote working and hybrid working, I think that's helped a lot of people to be able to work in a way that's much more suited to where their energy levels are, rather than being forced to be in work and focused and productive at a time where that's not actually suited to them. So yeah, sounds like you are definitely a night owl.
Yeah.
Good questions. Okay, who's got question number 3?
Are sleep and rest the same thing?
Oh, I would say not, but I would say that they're connected.
Right.
What do you think? I'm interested in the sort of context of the question. Were you thinking about something when you thought about the question?
Yeah, I was just like obviously sleeping, like you're knocked out. With resting, I'm like, I don't know. Is it naps? Is it napping? Is it just not being more as productive as you are during the day before you get bed? Or is it the same thing, just 2 different words for the same thing?
So I think there's definitely rest, as in slowing down and restful activities. I think what's interesting is that I think people assume that to rest, I guess it's the definition of what you see as rest, isn't it? For some people, what is a restful activity isn't actually just sitting and doing nothing. It's still being active. So it's going for a walk or going to the gym. That is like an active rest. That works really well for some people, whereas some people need to kind of completely kind of have very slow, restful activities like reading or colouring in or writing or sitting and watching TV. But some people prefer much more active rest. So I think there's that side of things. Then you've got almost this gap in between of kind of that lying down where your body is physically resting and your mind is mentally resting, but you're not actually asleep. And then you've got sleep itself and the different types of sleep that are really important for us as humans in terms of staying fit and healthy. And like I said earlier, the things that our bodies need to do when we're in sleep. So lighter sleep, deeper sleep, that REM sleep, all really, really important. So I think you could probably squeeze 3 categories, maybe. But I think people think that, now I speak to people that really struggle with, I need to rest more. And when you talk to them about the things that they do that help them to rest and re-energize, they're active, what I would call active rest. So it's going for a walk, maybe going to the gym, but slightly lighter, gym session or, you know, actually doing something, but that helps them to rest and re-energize. And for other people, it's kind of a complete switch off. Again, it's just working out what works for you. I mean, what charges your batteries? What helps you to kind of rest and then re-energize? What do you do, Lailah?
I do like a lot of music. I think music helps just calm me, whether it's just listening to a playlist or whether it's actually just playing the guitar or playing the piano and just not really doing anything, but I think it just helps me feel a bit calmer, and it's just a nice environment, I think, that I found helps me.
Yeah, music's really good for changing your energy state, isn't it, of either relaxing you or energizing you. What about you, Zoyah?
I like do nothing. Yeah, very like lazy. I think my rest is just sitting down on the sofa, eating. That's literally my rest. I don't.
But that's not a bad thing. I heard you use the word lazy, but it's really important. And I think that's the interesting thing about this, isn't it? Is that we don't encourage people to take that downtime, and we label it as lazy because so much of it is about being productive and doing things. And actually,
so long that like I'm productive all day, on my feet all day. I do get a lunch break where I am sat down, I don't move on my lunch break. I'm sat down in one place. That's my rest during the day. That's like my nap time. And then it's just long shift anyway. So
yeah,
me not doing anything is just, yeah, that's my rest basically.
but it's really important to have that rest. And I wouldn't call it lazy at all. I would call it really important. But I think that label is there, and I think that's why people then feel guilty that they're looking after themselves. And it's that whole self-care feels selfish, especially if there are other things that you should be doing or could be doing, that people feel selfish because they're not doing those things. But people get overwhelmed and get burned out because they don't take that time out and take that rest. So I think it's a good thing.
Yeah.
Okay, right, that's 3 questions. How am I doing so far? 2 to go.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good because I think also the questions like link quite a bit, so it's like a nice sort of discussion about it.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, so sort of following on from that, our next question was like, how much rest should we be having daily? And kind of on that note, like napping is a good thing or if it's not the best thing. But yeah.
So I'll cover the napping question first. I think that's a very individual thing. If I have a nap in the day, I feel horrible afterwards. I almost feel sick afterwards if I've had a nap during the day. So I find that if I feel really sleepy during the day, quite often it's an indication that I'm not well, or there's some kind of virus that my body's trying to fight off. Quite often when I'm ill, I sleep a lot more because my body needs that recovery and rest. So I find that if I'm feeling in the afternoon like I'm feeling really sleepy, then that's quite often an indication that I'm kind of getting close to something. There's some level of illness that's going on that I actually need to listen to that to make sure that I can kind of fight that off and help my immune system. But I also know of other people who can nap quite easily during the day and it doesn't make any difference at all. In fact, it's a much more helpful thing for them. So, you know, very much down to the individual. And I think probably the same with rest as well. I think it's difficult sometimes, isn't it? We've got different responsibilities. You know, you've got your work and your student work that needs to be done on top of that. That actually it can be very easy to put all of the things in, like, this is a priority, I need to get this done. But the rest is really important. And you'll know from when you did your GCSEs, having that time out away from the revision and in between the exams is really important. To give your brain some downtime, to give yourself a change of headspace is really important, to then go back in re-energized, focused, and be able to give it that attention. So I think it looks different for different people, dependent on your responsibilities. I think everybody could do 10 minutes a day. I would argue that everybody can take 10 minutes for themselves, whatever that is, whether it's listening to music, whether it's having a little nap. I think everybody has 10 minutes, read a chapter of a book, you know, something for them, not doing it for anybody else, but doing it for something for them. For me, it's a cup of coffee in the morning, which sounds so simple, but I really like, actually it's 2 cups of coffee if I'm being honest, but I quite like to sit in bed when it's really quiet in the morning before the day starts, and just have that time, with like that really peaceful time to just sit and give myself some headspace time to think things through. That's my 10 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour each day, because I know once I kind of get into the day, that's pretty much it. Although I go to the gym as well, that's rest, but that's active rest, so that's slightly different. But it's really important for me to have that. If I don't get exercise in, I can feel physically and mentally feel a difference of not prioritizing that. So it's really important for me, but it's different for different people, you know. So I think it's looking at what energizes you, what empties your stress bucket. That's really important, and find some time to do that, but also prioritize the time to do that and not feel guilty for it. It's okay. Yeah. Self-care is not selfish. You know, most people will benefit from us taking care of ourselves. And, you know, both of you are going into the care industry. You're going to be giving a lot of your energy to other people, and you can't do that if you don't look after yourselves.
Yeah.
So it's really important, whether that's from looking after your work, you know, people that you look after and support through work, or whether it's family members that you support and care for. It's really important to look after yourselves as well. But that guilty feeling is really common.
Yeah. I think I definitely get more of a guilty feeling, I think, when I don't necessarily do like active rest, but it's more when I am sort of on the sofa watching like 10 episodes of Friends and I just let it all play.
Yeah.
I think probably, yeah, when I do sort of active rest, I'd say that's more when I'm, you know, doing a workout, or I go out for a walk or something like that. Then I feel productive. But it's when you're watching TV, or maybe not doing as much, just like lying in bed, that you're a bit there like, oh, is this productive or is it helpful? But I guess in a way it is helpful.
I think so. I think where it has become more of, it's not a negative thing. I don't think it's a negative thing at all, but I think where it's been labeled as a negative thing is that what you're describing there are activities that quite often are associated with depression and low mood. And so people see and almost connect staying in bed for the, you know, staying in your pajamas, staying in bed, lying on the sofa watching TV as a negative, because they're quite often associated with people who, you know, people who are struggling with depression, with anxiety. But I think it's what your norm is, you know, looking at what is normal for you. If you've never done that and you suddenly start doing that on a regular basis, then I think you need to reflect on what's happening and whether that's helping you. If you feel better when you've done that, if you've spent the morning on the sofa or the afternoon on the sofa watching episodes of Friends, or you've had a lazy morning in bed, but you get up and you feel energized and you feel better for it, then it's a good thing. But I think if it's something that you are doing because you are unable to do anything else, then that's very different. But I think people have started to associate those kind of activities with not helpful, unhealthy, negative behaviours, because quite often they are associated with being unwell. And I think that's where people get concerned. But if that is something that energizes you, you feel better for doing that, then make sure that you plan in a little bit of sofa and Netflix time, or Disney and duvet days. They are just as important.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, next question. Funny question. How much does like mobile devices and electronic devices have an effect on your sleep?
Oh, huge. There's a lot of research out there, and not just from the physical element of the blue light. So I don't know if you've got filters on your phone where you can filter out the blue light or set the timing so that when at certain times of the evening it will kick in. That can help. But the blue light or any light in your room when you're sleeping can impact the quality of your sleep. So ideally, we should be sleeping in complete darkness. If you think back historically, people went to sleep when the sun went down and they woke up when the sun came up, and there wasn't any artificial light. It was purely done by the sun and the moon, you know. So nowadays, that artificial light can impact the quality of our sleep. So even just, you know, like the little red lights that are on technical devices in our bedrooms, that can have an impact. So things like blackout blinds, you know, covering, you know, the clocks with the time on it, you know, covering the, or, you know, those can have an impact. I mean, if you sleep through it, it's probably not a problem. But if you're somebody who's really struggling with sleep, those are the kind of things that you can look at. But the lighting aside and what that does to our brain in terms of switching our brain on, the things that we look at and the things that we read and the things that we put into our headspace before we go to sleep, they can have a significant impact as well. So if you're reading something that gives you that emotional response, that's not resting ready to sleep. If you're reading something that's sparking things in your mind, like creative ideas, that's not resting ready to sleep. And I know you said, Lailah, that you study really well later on in the evening, but you're using that time and then resting and going off to sleep. But if you were sat in bed and working or revising and then expecting to just shut the laptop and put your head on the pillow and go off to sleep, it might happen, but your brain is still in that activity mode. So it's going to take a lot longer to get into those deeper and REM stages of sleep. So what we put into our headspace last thing at night, first thing in the morning, through social media and other things on our devices, can make a really big difference. So it's not just the blue light and the technology that can impact our sleep. It's just what we're sparking off in our brain just before we go off to sleep. And I don't know about you two, I don't remember dreams very often, but when I do, they're really, really vivid. And quite often they are related to something that I've done the night before I've gone off to sleep, where I haven't shut down and switched off from that before I've tried to go to sleep. So it's just almost like I've carried it on, that thinking, but whilst I've been in that sleep state. So it is really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you dream a lot?
I just think I black out, honestly. Yeah. I don't think I do. What about you?
I feel like a lot of my sleep is dreams. I remember a lot of my dreams. I think I dream probably every night. And I think I lucid dream a lot as well. Like it's odd, but in my dreams, I feel like I can control what's going on and what I'm doing. That's probably why I can remember it so well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing though, because it might be that when you're dreaming, your brain isn't actually resting as it should be. I don't know.
I've read different things. I've read some things that say that that's just your brain's way of being able to process and be able to process things that you don't necessarily do when you're awake. And I've heard other people talk about how it's your brain's way of preparing things as well. So it's one thing that I would love to read up a little bit more about, because it is something, it comes up every time I do the topic of rest and sleep. Dreams comes up as a question, and I feel like it's not an area that I know much about. Yeah. So I think that's something that I can take away from this, of going and finding some books. So anybody who's watching or listening to this that have any book recommendations, let me know, because it's definitely something that I don't know a huge about. And I, like you, I have really vivid dreams. So, and there's lots out there, isn't there, about meaning and being able to interpret them. So it's definitely something I'd like to find out more about.
Yeah.
Good, 5. That was 5 questions, right?
Yeah.
That went really quickly. They were really, really good questions. Do you feel like you've got the answers that you were looking for, that you were expecting?
Yeah.
It's hard, isn't it? I think at your age as well, there's lots of expectations around that busyness and productivity, but I think the rest and sleep, especially at your age, because you're still evolving as humans, but being able to get the best out of your learning, and because that creates the opportunities that both of you are seeking. The rest is really important. Your brains are like a sponge, so when you go off to sleep, it goes from the short term into that longer term memory. So really, really important, and not something that people necessarily prioritize. So good questions.
Thank you.
Good questions. Did you want to throw any sneaky last minute ones in? Or you're good?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I can't think of them.
Maybe, I guess, with sort of in the way that we are in terms of apprenticeships and sixth form, and our life is very much, we are expected to sort of get up at 6 a.m. and suddenly, like, be awake and learning at like 8 a.m. And then, for all the students that have to sort of have that routine, is there any advice on ways that they can better sort of maybe resting and finding like an optimal time to do that stuff, I guess?
It's hard, isn't it? Because you don't get any say on when you're expected to be at your sort of peak state of being able to focus and attention. So I think that is a challenge. I mean, your circadian rhythm, so that 24-hour cycle that your body goes through, it will depend, and you can kind of reset, adjust it by just starting to bring your time that you're going off to sleep back that little bit earlier. Not something that you're going to make by huge jumps. So if it's just trying to get to bed 15 minutes earlier this week, and then try and be consistent with that, and then make it 20 minutes, half an hour, try and get consistent with that, it will start to reset. There are odd occasions where I have to set an alarm to make sure that I'm up for something in particular. It's one of the joys of being self-employed, is that I don't set an alarm. I haven't set an alarm routinely for a long time, so I tend to go off to sleep at a very similar time, and I tend to wake up at a very similar time, and that sort of 24-hour cycle is quite set for me. But as I was saying before we came on the call, and quite possibly why this might go out as audio only, is that I did a road trip yesterday. I got back at 4 o'clock this morning, but I was still awake. I think I was awake at 6, which is when I would normally wake up, and then I did manage to go back off until 8, but my body was almost like, the sun is up, so we need to be up, even though I clearly haven't had enough sleep, which is showing this morning. So I will try and get that back in this evening by going to bed, and I'll probably go to bed a little bit, like half an hour earlier, just to try and reset. So I don't want to go to bed too much earlier, otherwise it knocks it out the other way. So just trying to get into a routine that you can be consistent with, and that you can kind of create that 24-hour cycle is really important. So whether that cycle is going to bed at 10 and waking up at 7, or whether it's going to bed at 11 and waking up at 8, like, it depends on what your routine is. The more you can create that pattern so that your body knows what's going on, the better for you it is, both physically and mentally. So try to be as consistent as possible. So create routine that works for you, but that wind down time before bed, really important. And just making sure that you remove as much of those distractions as possible, so that when you do go off to sleep, that you don't have anything that's likely to disrupt it. That would be my advice. But those 24-hour cycles will be different for different people. For some people, it's a lot longer, and for some people they need more sleep, for some people they need less sleep. But the more you can be consistent with it, so that your body knows what's going on, the better.
Yeah.
Does that help? I would love for schools, colleges to be starting a little bit later, for people that find it difficult to be kind of alert and active first thing in the morning. I feel your pain. I do feel your pain. But yeah, just find a routine that works for you, and then just work on being really consistent with it. But don't try and make big jumps, because you're not suddenly going to start going to bed at 9 and falling asleep at 9 if you've been going to sleep at 11. Just keep bringing it forward. That 1% incremental changes, just make some slight adjustments, focus on being consistent. Consistency is a lot of the key with this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brilliant. No, thank you for such great questions, and thank you for your time. It's been great to have you on, and hopefully this encourages some more people to come on. Thank you. I mean, hopefully you've enjoyed it. It's not been too painful. Oh, brilliant. Hopefully we can get some more younger people on, because I think, yeah, you can include these kind of things in answers, but when you ask specific questions about people that are studying and people that are new into work and apprenticeships, it's the same answer, but it comes up in a very different context, doesn't it? So it's good to be able to talk about it. But thank you very much.
Thank you.